G'day guys, how you going? Hope you're having a fantastic evening. Now this evening I'm going to be doing a film review. This is a film that I reviewed a few days ago, but I didn't like the way it came out, so I decided to delete it and do it again, so here I am. This is a Norwegian horror film. Now I'm getting into my Norwegian sort of horror films. I like Scandinavian horror, Swedish, Danish and Norwegian. I reckon they're making a name for himself in the modern era of horror films, so definitely an area of the world to look out for as far as horror goes. This one was recommended to me by my friend Magnus, Vault Keeper 2. I did a shout out for him a few days ago, so check it out if you haven't done so already. This is a very, very hard film to come by, and he was kind enough to send it to me, so I was very thankful. And yes, I probably wouldn't have been able to see this film hadn't have been for Magnus's generosity. So I was very thankful to get this one and excited to see another Norwegian horror film because I've got quite a few in my collection now. But anyway, this is a 2009 film directed by Severin Ixland, and this is Detour. Well, the actual Norwegian title is Snarveien or Snarveien, but the actual English title is Detour. So Detour starts off with this Norwegian couple. They're travelling in Norway. They go to this fat guy's house who's a friend of theirs. And this fat guy's having a wedding. There's a wedding party that's going on. And he needs alcohol. He needs good alcohol. And apparently the best alcohol is in the neighbouring country of Sweden. So the plan is the fat guy asks this couple to go into Sweden, get some booze, and smuggle it back into Norway. And they're not really aware of the consequences that result from being caught alcohol smuggling, but they're willing to take the risk because it's their friend's big day. So this couple go into Sweden, they get the alcohol, load it in the car, and they're on their way back to Norway. But before they can get back over the border, the main road is closed off. And this police officer stops the car and he tells them there's been an accident further up the road, you're going to have to take a detour. And this detour is located in these woods. Now it's kind of a typical sort of scenario for a horror film, but they have to go through this very lonely road in the woods, and they have a few sort of bizarre moments of bad luck. And it starts off with their car tyre being punctured, and then they narrowly miss hitting this spaced out woman on the road. She just off their head on something. And then the third time unlucky, they can't start their car. So they're wondering what the hell they're going to do, and they get this feeling that someone is watching them, and they get a real sense of paranoia. And that paranoia proves to be reality because in this woods, in this particular wood, there are surveillance cameras installed on the trees. So it turns out that this couple are in the trap of a group of people who make online live streaming internet snuff films. And as I said, this couple are the main role of their latest films. So basically, this group of psychopaths, they do these live internet shows and people pay to see them. So some twisted people pay to see them. So as the film goes on further, they fall into the evil clutches of these maniacs and they have to pretty much get away. And that's as far as I go with the film. There's a lot of twists and turns in the film, so I'm not going to give away too much, otherwise I'm going to spoil it. But that's your basic sort of plot. Now, I really like the fact that this film had a lot of suspense in it, and it played psychologically. It played with you, with your mind. As I said, when they're trapped inside this car, well, not trapped, but they break down, you really get a sense that someone in the shadows is watching. And then, of course, when you realise that there are cameras installed on the trees, that kind of gives it away. But as far as the characters go, they don't know what is out in the dark, and it creates a really creepy sort of feel that although someone might not be watching you, they're probably not watching you, you still have that paranoia set in where you think someone might be watching me because they're hearing noises in the background. They don't know if it's animals or what, and so it really does create a sort of tense psychological atmosphere. And the acting was really good in it. I was really happy with the acting. It's surprisingly very good. And the one thing I like about Scandinavian horror, Norwegian in particular, is the fact that they've got positives and a negative, but I'll get through the positive first. They respect the genre of horror. Now, Hollywood, in my opinion, they don't respect horror. They treat it as a joke. It's just there to be made fun of. That's why so many bad films are coming out from Hollywood. This is just my opinion. You might disagree, but I feel that Hollywood, they don't treat horror as a serious sort of genre. It's just one to aim at teenagers and that's it. Whereas Norwegian horror, Scandinavian horror, as well as French and Spanish, they really treat the genre with a lot of respect, and you can really tell this comes across through by how well they make their films. The acting, the direction, a lot of time and effort is put into this. So even though it might not be the best horror film out there, you still get the feeling that time and effort has gone in, and the directors and the people making the film are really respecting the viewer. So that's what I really like about European horror. They really put their time and effort in, and that's why they're light years ahead of Hollywood at the moment. So I really like this. Is a very well polished sort of film. Good acting, really good atmosphere, good scenery. So as far as making the film goes, it's pretty flawless. Now I'll go to the negatives. Now, as I said, a lot of Norwegian films had these positives, but a lot of Norwegian films have this negative. The fact that it is not original. This is not something, it's not a film that you haven't seen before. Now, this reminded me of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in some parts and Vacancy in other parts. And yeah, it's not really different, and unfortunately I found this quite predictable. Even though I wasn't sure exactly when something was going to happen, I pretty much knew what was going to happen. And it was pretty much like, because I've watched other films that this film had been inspired by, it's kind of like a spoiler in itself. So if you've seen Vacancy or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you pretty much know where this film is heading, just because of the fact that it's not overly original. And that's what disappointed me a lot. That's what disappoints me. There are more positives with Norwegian horror than there is negative, but one of the negatives is that they don't, while they have their own style, they don't necessarily have a very original sort of storyline. A lot is borrowed from other, mainly Hollywood, but they just make them. The films are a lot more solid, but they are borrowed ideas. And in the end, that really hurts it, because this was a good film. I do recommend it, but it was very predictable. So don't expect anything in depth. Don't expect anything mind blowing or something that you haven't seen before. So if you're looking for a film to watch on a Friday night, definitely get this one. This is better than most of the more recent Hollywood stuff, and I do recommend it because it's very well made. It is a lower sort of budget, but you wouldn't realise that because the director does have a lot of skill, and the dialogue was pretty good. I like the dialogue, and it's a bit hard to tell how good someone's acting when they're speaking in a language that you're not familiar with, but I got into the story, I could believe it, and it's just a bit of a shame that I knew where the twists and turns were going to go. But overall, it is a recommended film, but just don't expect anything mind-blowing. So that's my review of the 2009 film Snarveien, or Detour. Recommended, but yeah, nothing out of the ordinary. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll see you later.